to the comic shop. I'll let you read about Cyclops. I'll have you spending all you got. Cyberfrog is looking hot. Uncle E. All right, time for another round. Here we go. Comic books that move the needle. And today we're dealing with BAM! WildCATS Covert Action Teams #1 by Jim Lee. Pretty simple, man. I haven't read this thing in like 20 years and I just cracked it open a few minutes ago. And it was pretty dope, actually. It was pretty dope. Well, the comic is filled with amazing art by Jim Lee and an excellent story by Jim Lee and Brandon Choi. What's really fun, actually, when you get these old comics from Image, is sometimes you will find story. A lot like, in the Savage Dragon videos, I talk about how Eric Larson would always have just pages and pages of letters from fans that he would respond to, and I always thought that was so cool because that is how you keep your brand strong and how you keep your brand moving the needle. And I want to just read this to you guys. What a wild trip it's been so far. 6 years. Let me preface this first. This is WildCATS Covert Action Teams #1 of 3, August 1992. August of 1992. So my boy Jim Lee must have wrote this sometime in the early summer of 1992. Image was just popping off, getting super, super hot. Super hot. I mean, no, I don't even know what you compare it to today. It's like the buzz that goes on with the San Diego Comic Con, except that's literally happening every day of the week at a local comic book shop. That's what Image was. That's the only thing I can think to describe it. I don't know if there's been anything quite like it since. The way people were treating Star Wars when Disney first bought it, not now. Now it's different. Now everybody's trying to teach Disney how to move the needle with Star Wars. The fans are re-educating the IP owner what it is they want, and that's a beautiful thing. But really, if you remember when Star Wars was first bought by Disney and everybody was so excited, even better, let's go back to the Phantom Menace. Before you saw it, not after you saw it, but before you saw it. That buzz, that hype was Image Comics, and because of Image, that became the entire industry as a whole for a couple years there. And it was just amazing, the speculative market had moved into comic books, just the stars aligned, and the comic book industry was blessed for quite a while there. I hope everyone saved their money too. I know Jim Lee did. So August 1992, let's say he wrote this in, June or July of 92, June of 92 probably. What a wild trip it's been so far. 6 years and roughly 2,000 pages ago, I broke into the comics field. At the time, I had just graduated from college and was making what seemed to me to be a fairly monumental decision about my life. Having decided to postpone a career in medicine, I was determined to make it in the field which so enthralled me when I was younger, namely comics. Unfortunately, I couldn't draw. I know how that feels. At least not well enough to get me work. Beyond even the most rudimentary aspects of the business, such as paper dimensions, tools, zipatone, etc., I had a lot to learn about storytelling, anatomy, perspective, and lighting. And I still do. But that's another column altogether. I created my first professional comic book submission in the summer of 1986, entitled The Wild Boys, involving an espionage agency called International Operations. The co-writer of that sublime piece of work was, coincidentally enough, Brandon Choi, who at the time was still in college getting a double major in history and politics. Brandon was and still remains one of my closest friends, right behind my wife Angie. We've known each other since the 5th grade, and it is no exaggeration to anyone who knows us that we are more like brothers. Although we didn't create our own gold and silver and modern age versions of our characters like the Savage Dragon's creator, Eric Larson, whose output amazes me, we still managed to waste hours of our childhoods in our parents' kitchens, cooking up our own heroes and villains. We worked on a number of collaborations, but it was the Wild Boys which got me noticed at Marvel, and that led to my first assignment there in the fall of 1986. As fate would have it, the only other company interested in publishing my work was the fledgling publisher, Malibu Comics. Tom Mason was the contact there, and 6 years later, he is one of the people I work with to get this book into your hands. Being a lifelong Marvel fan, I chose to ply my trade there rather than at Malibu, and Brandon soon entered law school. We were too preoccupied with the changes in our lives to fulfill some of our childhood aspirations to work on a comic together. Now, I'm not the most metaphysical person in the world, but I like to believe that life moves in ever-progressing cycles. We make movement in a vertical plane, but in slow, loopy circles, suspended at any point in the life cycle. We can look down below us to see past moments and events which have strong resonances with our own present, expanding comprehension and understanding of our lives. I feel I have made one such loop. Convinced that writing funny books would be more interesting than litigating, Brandon moved to San Diego after graduating to join me here at Homage Studios. I left Marvel to help form Image Comics, and we're now collaborating on a title involving concepts and ideas from years back, and we're doing it at the only other company which offered me work back in 1986. I'm still learning how to draw and still buy comics off the stand every week. So what's the deep significance of all this? I don't know exactly. It just makes me smile a lot these days. Just don't give up on what you want in life. It'll eventually happen if you want it enough. It just may come about in the strangest of ways. Thanks for all the support. Jim Lee, San Diego, California. And well, now Jim Lee is in charge of DC Comics. And this was part of that path to becoming the man he is right now in our present. And I'm sure that the Jim Lee back in the summer of '92 would have had no clue he'd end up where he is today. But he kept his nose down, kept his nose to the grindstone, people. That is young men watching. Keep your nose to the grindstone. And don't give up on those dreams. You keep working on it. Work on it 7 days a week. Don't stop. Somebody else is only working on it 5 days a week. So you work on it 7 and you're ahead of them. But anyway, I don't want to get into a dissertation on how you become successful in life. I want to talk about how Jim Lee made this comic, what? Move the needle. Okay, so basically there's this explosion that happened in Antarctica back in 1980. And this silver chick is in it. We'll come to find out her name is Void. And there's a little bit of time jumping going on. This is Imp, Jacob Marlowe. He's an imp from the past. I'll explain it here. Let's just keep going here. Gets in a fight with these bums. Void shows up. You were once the Lord Imp, one of the 4 lords of power, the champion of mankind. The Cabal has once more ascended to power on this world and threatens humanity. So basically, he's been walking around for the last, few years, just drunk as a skunk, confused about who he is, where he came from, basically an amnesiac. And, sexy silver chick Void shows up, and, they clasp hands. Your life shall never be the same. You fast forward, and now he's a total pimp. He's Donald J. Trump, living in the what? Penthouse. Ding! Multi-billionaire. He is. He's like a midget Trump. So he gets a nice clean shave here in the elevator because, you can do that when you're wealthy. That's one reason why you need to work hard so you end up wealthy like Mr. Jim Lee back here. And anyway, so she tells the story about how she was, locked in mortal combat with a mysterious man who covets an orb of great power. And we believe this orb is a conduit for a kind of cosmic energy beyond our wildest imaginings. So the man had mastered the ability of the orb and shoots her with it, and she feels the very fabric of her being stretching, straining, extending her life force to its very limits. And then basically she's like, everything shatters and implodes in this beautiful piece of art by Jim Lee. That is gorgeous. Take a minute to look that in. It's unfortunate, actually, that the first few Image comics were not on glossy paper, because that could look even better. Even better. So then we meet Spartan, who, you know, we don't know it yet, but it's going to turn out that he's an android. And we meet Maul. This is just a, you know, for all intents and purposes, a cheap ripoff of the Incredible Hulk, right down to, you know, the bigger Hulk get, the dumber Hulk get. Which is kind of disappointing, because he actually looks pretty cool, though. I like the horns on the back thing. That's pretty original. This is Warblade. And he's kind of, you know, similar to a Logan. But I always felt that Warblade, you know, had enough originality going on in the look that he really wasn't like Wolverine. And he didn't have the same personality as Wolverine either. So basically you've got Hellspawn here. And this is kind of interesting, because Hellspawn makes a reference to the fact that he once paid a man 30 silver pieces to betray his own mentor. An allusion to Jesus Christ, and Hellspawn being perhaps the devil himself. And there he is, a great looking villain, man. Very 90s, very forward thinking. Thank you, Jim Lee. Thank you, Image Comics, for being so forward thinking. I always thought this little chick was pretty hot. This is Providence. And I thought she was pretty cute, and I could never understand why she would be with such a douchel. But she was, you know. Nice girls like bad guys sometimes. That happens. It comes with this card with Voodoo and Spartan on it. Yeah, that was cool back then, kind of, you know. I mean, we could take it out, and there you can see, like, oh, it's an uncut card, and that's supposed to be cool. Back then, that was cool. I don't know if it still is. His real name is Hadrian 7, though. And her real name is Priscilla Kaiten. Which, that last name is the name of, I'm trying to remember the gal's name who was in, like, is it Angel in a Centerfold by the Jay Giles Band, or was it Pour Some Sugar on Me? She's My Cherry Pie? I want to call her Kylie Catan. It's not. It's Tawny Catan, maybe? Was like a rocker chick in the big hair 80s. And I'm going to guess that's where they got this last name from. Anyway, so, you know, Grifter shows up here at this strip club that used to be a quiet dive for company spooks and operators who came down here to unwind and get away from all the crap at Langley. But now it's you know, it was a hot spot during the Cold War, but now it's a strip club where this super sexy chick Voodoo works. And these two, this Amazon and her two jabronis show up, this you know, mastodon chick here. And they're there to kill Zealot kill Voodoo. And Voodoo's power, this is actually kind of cool. She's kind of got like, her power is Roddy Piper's glasses in They Live. And so she can see the true form of creatures, and she doesn't even need Roddy Piper's glasses. So that's always neat. Anything that is related to Roddy Piper's, thumbs up around here. So she's just like, get away from me, because you look like, you know, a freakazoid. And actually, she doesn't look anything like Freakazoid, the cartoon, at all. I just said that. So, you know, all hell breaks loose. This Amazon chick, she's with Dakota, which is like this female fighting force from years past. There's kind of like these religious tones in WildCATS, with Grifter here, who now pulls his mask down. The blonde gentleman from here pulls his mask down and becomes totally awesome when he becomes the Grifter. And these guys are just like, oh no, activate your flash suits, which is actually a cool concept, is a flash suit, but I don't know what all these like little things are that stick up off their heads. These, you guys know what, the older boys know what those are. Popsicle sticks. But the cool idea of the flash suit, I do like that, despite the ladies' toys on top of the head. I didn't quite get that. Those are for later. But so Grifter, you know, he's obviously just a total badass here, and definitely somebody that kids are going to think is totally awesome. And this comic does have just a very, very light language, less than the Savage Dragon. And so I would say that it has so far been, you know, acceptable for a kid, but I just don't think that an 8 or a 9-year-old is going to grasp some of the complexities of a comic like WildCATS with the religious overtones. I just don't think they're going to quite get into that. Image seems to me to have been more for, 11, 12, 13, 14 and up, That's a good age for Image comics. So, everybody shows up here, all hell breaks loose, they do their thing. Ooh, Cyberforce. We're going to get into this one in the future. This is going to be fun. I haven't not read this before, believe it or not. So anyway, Zealot shows up, and obviously, as you can tell, she is both an avenging angel with a body worth killing for. She's born a coda, the woman knows no fear. Sex and violence, all rolled together with a bad attitude, and that definitely defines that character. And I always thought that these characters had a very original look. Some people back then would make comparisons between, Spider-Man, Spawn is just Spider-Man, but dead with like Dead Man's powers, but he's got Ghost Rider's chains. And it's like, okay, I guess, but if you read Spawn, it's not that at all. It's super original story, and so I don't know what those people are talking about. But in some instances, you can definitely see where Image creators were perhaps influenced by previous creations that they had made at Marvel, or maybe they just wanted to take a dig at that company and make a character that looks strikingly similar. And this is not that character, though. Zealot, look at her. She's 100% original. 100% original. I love it. I love it. So, a bunch more stuff happens in this comic here. She finally meets Marlowe, the Donald Trump midget. And then, everything, I guess the Green Goblin showed up and pumpkin bombed the hell out of the joint somewhere. Oh, no, it was the Amazon chick. She sets off a bomb that absolutely levels an entire city block. And Hellspawn is, just like, what's going on? And then this weird-looking blonde guy in it. The one thing about this comic that I did not like, I just read this again for the first time in 20 years, and I look over here and it's like they set this guy up. The rest is now up to you. The worst is over, Hellspawn. With the cherubim dead, anyone else by comparison will be small potatoes. And Project Reunification. What have you heard from Choi? Kai? I don't know how to pronounce this name here. Choi? McCoy? Is it McCoy? Like, is he Irish? McCoy? Everything's right on schedule. I'll have access to the NASA security passes within 24 hours. Of course, I'll have to check with Marilyn just to make sure. I don't understand. Is this supposed to be Bobby Kennedy? I'm just like, who's Marilyn? I don't remember Marilyn being mentioned anywhere previously in the comic. And I'm not really sure who this guy's supposed to look like. And so this compels me to want to read more. But this whole story in general was actually pretty good. And it made me want to go pick up issue number 2 and issue number 3 and go through WildCATS again. And really see what it's all about. Because this was kind of entertaining for me. And I would say that I can see why. Oh, look at that. Wetworks. How about that? Coming in November. It might not be, though. But as I was saying, I can totally see why this comic, WildCATS, absolutely all the way, nonstop, hashtag move the needle. Especially in the early 90s when comics weren't this sexy. And now they're sexy, and I'm going to say it again like I've said before. Image Comics in the 1990s was the Quentin Tarantino of comic books. And for me, that's like as awesome as things can get. I don't think you can make something cooler than the Quentin Tarantino of comic books, which is what Image was for a while there. So anyways, tell me if you liked WildCATS in the comments below. I want to know who your favorite WildCATS character was. And if you read WildCATS now, I haven't bought a comic book in the 21st century. I have not bought a new comic book in the 21st century. Have you bought a WildCATS? Is it as good as it was back then? Let me know in the comments below. Please like. Please subscribe. Push that ding dong for notifications. And I'll see you next time.